Aliens are retardo. And if you believe in aliens, you can talk to the hand. Or is it? What if everything you thought you knew wasn't? What if your body wasn't yours? What if your butt wasn't attached? What if aliens really could probe you from behind? What if aliens really were pervs who came here to touch people? What if aliens really needed cow buttholes? What if our alien space brothers did seed us here, and they were actually pervs and that was okay? Would you still be a bigot if you found out your creators were pervs? And all the anal probing, and all the slicing and cutting of the cattle mutilations of cows' buttholes was actually to save the planet from cow toots and climate change? Would you still be a bigot then if you learned the truth about our space brothers, that they did not exist and were actually real? What would you do? Well, there's much that's up for grabs in this universe. There's one thing that's the most rational and most sure, and most likely for sure, which is that probably the way that we did come to be was as a result of aliens, extraterrestrial biological entities traversing light years to surgically remove the buttholes of cows in which to anally probe humans in order to which create test tubes to grow humans. This is definitely rational. This is definitely probably what happened, and not theism, not the existence of any god. That is irrational.
Gas fog, methane.
Is it that big of a problem in the world, cows farting?
It can be.
I guess when you add it up, right?
We add it up, yeah.
Aliens. Bright lights from the sky. Aliens. Little tiny guy. Aliens. Definitely real. Aliens. Probes that you will feel. Aliens. Aliens from the sky. 5.
Aliens. All right, so I got the idea to go back and watch a bunch of alien movies from different decades to look at the progress of the propaganda, and what was really striking was the continuity. Now, the first one I chose was one I'd never seen, The Day the Earth Stood Still, the 1951 film, very similar to Childhood's End, which I'll mention later. But this movie is 4 years after Roswell, and the aliens arrive. and they have gigantic craft that suddenly appear over many U.S. cities. This trope continues, as we said, from Charlotte's Inn into many films after this. This leads to the world becoming united. The news media jumps into high gear. The whole world has to become one over the threat of the outside alien influence. This, of course, brings to mind the Rockefeller Project of the Orson Welles reading of War of the Worlds, which freaked everybody out because they thought that it was real. Foo saucers are real, and glowing discs flying around everywhere, particularly over the obelisk, the giant phallus in DC. That's where they decide to land. And what we can see is that even in The Day the Earth Stood Still, it was already clear that this was a psyop. The propaganda is so thick in this movie, it's pretty funny. Actually, I recommend going and watching this, because since now everyone is talking about let's storm Area 51, let's raid Area 51, which is absurd. Let's see them alien. We want to look back at some of these classics of propaganda. There's 50s man overload in this film. Giant puffy boxy ties and little generic American boys with tiny puffy ties. We are told that the entities come in peace, and they're here to show off their flashy hammer pants. And somebody accidentally shoots the alien, and this sparks the aliens to demonstrate their powers. And as a result, they let loose their AI, Gort, who is a very smooth, extremely smooth being, who has, of course, powers to zap people. And the aliens, we learn, are supreme AI type of creatures. Or excuse me, they possess this supreme AI technology that they can control. They have super mystery metals. That's what Gort is made of. They decide a meeting must be had in Moscow, which is interesting because this is Cold War period, just like all the way up to Bob Lazar, Cold War period. And the idea being that the Cold War has to end because of the bigger threat, right? Not communism and capitalism. We've got to have a unifying, overarching threat. And this reminds us of the Reagan speech to the UN. Right? The aliens are the possible unifying threat. Now, the alien says he takes on, he has a human form, of course, and he says he's not going to speak to any specific nation because he doesn't believe in nation states. So he's a UN globalist. And he tells the masses that they are all in fear, and that's the only reason that they erected borders. So he just happens to be an internationalist. Now, Klaatu gets loose. Excuse me, Klaatu is the alien. Gort is the AI. Now, Klaatu is held in captivity for a while, but he gets loose. And the FBI is after Klaatu, so we have this sort of Cold War-ish communism theme here, that the internationalist, the guy promoting internationalism, is the persecuted Klaatu. And I don't know why, but consistently in the 50s, the word was not robot, it was robot. It literally could not say robot. Everyone in the 50s says robot. It's a robot. Humans are xenophobic, they are self-defensive, and they are puerile, childish. The only people who have wisdom is the generic little boy and the communist robot Gort, or excuse me, Klaatu. Also, the women are the only rational, sensible people, and all of the boring 50s carbon copy men are buffoons. Spacemen seem to then represent, quote, communism, socialism, the rational scientific future. So Klaatu decides that the only person he can talk to is Science Man. So he goes to the Neil deGrasse Tyson / Bill Nye of his day with the Jufro. I don't think he's supposed to be Jewish. His name is something like Bannister or something. I don't remember what his name is, but a scientist with a mad scientist Jufro. And Spaceman decides that a new world order has to be formed, and this will lead to world peace. And since money is what is the problem, the creeper alien who just takes the kid to the movies gives him a diamond, you see. So he's beyond the need for money. He's beyond the need for these petty sort of things. And so the best of all Earthmen is who he's looking for. And as we said, this ends up being an introduction to the scientists, right? The Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye character, blended together into Dr. Jufro. So we have fear versus reason set up here. Only the kids and the women get it, and the scientists. Everybody else is a buffoon. And the kid has a very tiny tie. Very, very tiny tie. The alien is, of course, a genius, and he understands celestial mechanics, and he solves the scientist's problem, and so therefore we should all listen to him. Now the physicist is, the scientist of course is a physicist. We learned that physics is all that matters. He's a master of atomics, and wouldn't you know it, atomics just happens to be what Klaatu is a master in. So people don't listen though to reason. They only listen to their emotions and their xenophobia. So therefore we need more scientists to save us. Essentially the entire movie is, by the way, there's also an Aunt B character. Literally Aunt B plays Aunt Biatch from Andy Griffith from Alien Griffith, because she is representing the older generation, the distrustful older generation who is not willing to accept the progress of scientism. So Klaatu kind of represents just a Cold War spy, you could argue. The film consistently said, they are among us. They are among us, the quote aliens, which here represent communism, but communism in this movie is presented as a positive. And by the way, they just take kids to the movies. Some random guy shows up and just takes the generic Leave It to Beaver kid to the movies, gives him a diamond because he doesn't need money, handing out bling, tossing bling around, making it rain, taking kids to movies. Creeper. All the super advanced tech, by the way, is very plastic. It's because it's a B-movie set, but I just thought it was ironic that everything in the future is plastic, which they just meant to have a cheap set. But the irony, of course, is that everything in the future is plastic. We do, in the future, now live in a giant B-movie set. Now, at the end, of course, we learned that there will be... they use a worldwide EMP, by the way. Don't forget the EMP weapon. But there's a secret science club that runs the world. Most secret science club. And that's necessary because everybody else is too stupid. So we need a secret science society. And then, of course, the movie ends with nothing but total United Nations propaganda. So back in the 50s, 1951, we have this preposterous presentation. And what I thought was really fascinating was that when I went back and watched these dumb alien movies, it was the same propaganda and model through all of them. Now, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a little different because in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you have the presentation of something akin to War of the Worlds, but this seems to be more of an anti-communist film. Here, the idea is that small-town America will be infected by the virus of the outer world xenophobic external threat. And everybody knows the story behind Invasion of the Body Snatchers, so I'm not going to rehearse it, but of course everybody thinks the guy's crazy, the doctor. Of course he ends up being vindicated. And they want to take over by a mind virus even small-town America. So there is a bit of a contrast between The Earth Stood Still and the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, is one seems to kind of be pro-communism, and the other one seems to be anti-communism. Pressure from above and below. Now, after that, I watched one that everybody's forgotten. That you saw in the goofy intro there, the 90s movie Arrival, The Arrival. The Charlie Sheen Arrival that everyone has forgotten. I've not forgotten this. I went to the theater to see it. I think I fell asleep, but I might have been stoned. I don't recall. But I do recall going to the theater to see this movie. And it's pretty funny. I was cracking up pretty consistently because Charlie Sheen is total dad bod here. He wears a vest, a braided belt, and mom jeans. And he is a scientist who is studying Wolfstar 336, which is an interesting star to be studying when he gets. I mean, this sounds absurd, but actually they talk about the methane gases. The aliens are quite literally poking holes in the earth, and at night they're letting loose giant farts. And this is, I'm not kidding, it's like giant balls of green gas. This is altering Earth's atmosphere. And yeah, so I'm trying to go through my notes here. Long story short, Black Science Boy was actually an alien the whole time, who was spying on Charlie. They're here, and the government is terraforming. That's the big secret. Terraforming the globe, and they're shape-shifting reptilians in an underground base that use giant toot clouds to heat up Earth's atmosphere. Now we come to the character of Jeff Goldblum. Will you listen to science again, or will you retreat into xenophobia and fear? So yes, Jeff Goldblum, Jeff Toot Blossom, and we have in Independence Day the same principle here. I'm not joking. I don't know why. I guess it's the obsession with gaseous things from the rear areas of humans seems to permeate the alien films. And of course it permeates the alien mythos, of course, as we all know, because of the alien probe phenomenon. But if you don't remember, Randy Quaid, who has been probed and is therefore a drunk, at the end of the movie, flies up into the makeshift anus of the ship, and he says, "Up yours," which is supposed to be funny because he's been probed by the aliens. Do you get it? Now,
Harvey Firestein is a wondrous character in this. He's probably the funniest thing next to Jeff Goldblum is Harvey Firestein.
If you don't recall, go back and watch ID4 and you will enjoy the Harvey Firestein sections. But SETI comes into this again, but what I didn't catch in the many previous viewings of Independence Day was that the same patterns and archetypes of propaganda were present in Independence Day. Basically, that to save the planet, we need to come together in a global situation because there is an outside alien threat force. There's giant skyscrapers that tumble down that if you don't recall, very clearly image other events that happened not too long after this. And the military and the scientific deep state works together to save us. Curiously, in this film, the CIA are the bungling buffoons. I don't know why the weasel face guy, the guy who always plays the Weasley character in all 90s movies, represents an incompetent CIA character, but this is definitely a deep state film. And what we get is the idea that just like in The Day the Earth Stood Still, if we will only listen to the quote scientific elite, then maybe we'll stave off the coming threat and crises, right? And the whole world can then unite under a new religious banner, because they show places like Mount Sinai, they show religious sites in ID4, if you don't recall. And then we're told that it's time for a revolution. Right? So it's attached to the sort of Americanism. It has a very Top Gun feel to it, if you don't recall. And Harry Connick Jr. plays a white guy acting like a black guy. I did not recall this. He consistently hones in on Will Smith's butt. Will Smith. He's constantly making butt jokes and taking imaginary pictures of his butt in the locker. Very bizarre. What is going on here? I thought Harry Connick Jr. just played the piano or something, right? He's this sort of male version of, he looks in the face like Julia Roberts, and he played piano, and here he is acting like a black dude and talking about Will Smith's butt and talking like a black preacher. I'm like, what is going on? Very bizarre. Did not remember any of that crap. But it's all about climate. It's all about the atmosphere again. And Will Smith is married to a Skrippa. Did you remember that? Why is he married to a Skrippa? What was the point of that? I don't know what, but they get married. Jeff Goldblum does reunite with his very Aunt MILF-looking wife in the film, who has separated from him. Yes, if you talk like that, you are smart. If you talk like Jeff Goldblum affectation, you are automatically smart. Then I watched Paul. Remember the comedy Paul? I never did see this, but what was interesting about this was that it was a little bit funnier than I expected, because I don't really think that chunky dude that's Simon Pegg's cohort is that funny. But it did have Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader and the dude from The State, so those were pretty funny scenes. However, the propaganda was pretty thick here, because Paul basically functions as a means to destroy the idea of the existence of God. That actually is in the film. They talk about that. They even say aliens destroy the belief in Christianity. And Simon Pegg and the chunky dude play sort of fedora Reddit atheist type euphoric characters who attend Comic-Cons. They're LARPing nerds, and he's trying to write a sci-fi story, right? So they go on this long madcap adventure. They meet Paul the alien, who can do miracles that Jesus does. All of his miracles are like Jesus. He can bring the dead back. He can heal Kristen Wiig's lazy eye. And he can touch your third eye and awaken you. So he's a sort of God Jesus type character, but he's just evolution, man. And of course, Seth Rogen is the voice of Paul. And so the idea is that he disproves the Judeo-Christian God, we're told in the film, and then he opens up your third eye. We're told that God is a lie consistently throughout the film. The Kristen Wiig character undergoes a Darwinian enlightenment. And at the end of the film, of course, her dad is this crazed evangelical. And then, of course, there was also, I did look at Childhood's End, and the same idea was there, right? I haven't watched I'd read the book a long time ago, but I haven't watched the full series yet. I just watched the first episode, but it's the same principle, right? It's the idea that the aliens and their technology are going to save us from our own crises, all the crises, all these globalism books too. It's just all crises. There's not really that many crises out there, but they sure do act like there are. That's part of the propaganda. Anyway, point being is that throughout the whole thread, it's scientism and the scientists. Let's see them alien, right? That are going to save us. Area 51 is not going to be raided, not going to be stormed. Because if you remember, in Independence Day, that was in Independence Day. They storm Area 51 in Independence Day. Did you remember that? I didn't remember this. This is crazy. Randy Quaid leads an army of RVs, of trailers, to storm Area 51. And they do. It's out of a movie, bro. So, anyway, that's my analysis of 4 or 5 recent alien films. The most funny of which was the sequence where Jeff Goldblum gets drunk. Is way overacted and funny because he doesn't even seem drunk at all, but he's just thrashing around. Harvey Fierstein thrashing around was comical, and Charlie Sheen with his goatee, boomer tier goatee, mom jeans, and braided belt and vest was funny. All made it worth it. This is Jay Dyer from Jay's Analysis. I hope you enjoyed this brief overview of Day the Earth Stood Still, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the movie The Arrival, ID4, and touching on Childhood Zone and Paul, all with the same themes for 60, 70 years. So in other words, 70 years now since Roswell or whatever, and then all of these endless alien movies have been teaching us, propagandizing us, not just about the Cold War external threat, but now quite literally the existence of the Space Brothers, which don't exist. There are no Space Brothers. It's a replacement religious conception is all it is. It's a creation. And so just like last week, or no, 2 weeks ago when we covered Bob Lizard and his goofy documentary, it's all fake. Now, there are spiritual entities. There are realities of good and evil and so forth and so on. But again, just focusing on the Area 51 memes, the idea of storming Area 51, which was a huge, goofy distraction. But let's do it. I'm there. I'm driving to Area 51.